Hey, sixth grade. Today we're going to learn about, we're going to move into ancient Rome. Our first lesson about ancient Rome is going to be about some of the architecture that the ancient Romans used when building all of the magnificent structures that they were able to build. And we're going to start off talking about where the Romans got a lot of their ideas from, and that would be from the architecture of the ancient Greeks. If we think back to the ancient Greeks, we know that the ancient Greeks used lots of uh, columns or pillars with different fancy designs at the top and the bottom, and the Romans they picked up on that architecture, and they used it, and they built upon that, and they added to that to make it their own style. They used Greek style porches and rows of columns. They called these rows of columns colonnades. They also did their own features. They added arches and domes. Roman builders were the first ones to make full use of an arch, and an arch could be used to support a bridge, an aqueduct, or a building. Now, an aqueduct is like it's like an artificial method for transporting water. It's man-made irrigate. It's a man-made irrigation or water transport system where the ancient Romans would make something that looked a lot like a bridge, and it would be slightly angled down, so water gravity would pull the water downhill, and it would have um, at the top of it, kind of like a half pipe, and they could build this next to a large water body of water, like a lake or a river, and the water could be diverted into this aqueduct. Just think about it as irrigation. We'll look at some pictures of some in just a minute. And another thing that they could do is they would take rows of arches and they would build an arch, say it's 2 feet wide, and then they build another arch 2 feet wide that touched that one, and another arch 2 feet wide that touched that one. And if they repeated that process over and over and over again, they could have um, basically a dome formed out of lots of different sections of arches attached together. So here's an example of an ancient Greek bridge that still, I'm sorry, not Greek, Roman, an ancient Roman bridge. It still stands today in Spain. You see it's got arches in it, lots of arches. Got another shot, excuse me, another shot of another. Now, these are aqueducts. And you can see, if you look especially down here, it starts to make a domed roof, but these are lots and lots of arches that were built right next to each other to form this dome structure. When you get an arch built like that, it's very strong, and it allows them to build on top. Another thing that made the buildings that ancient Rome made so strong that many of them are still around today is the Romans were the first people to invent and use concrete. And when they made their concrete, they made it out of a mixture of volcanic ash, lime, and water. And when it dried, it was hard as rock. And they had lots of those materials available to them, so they were able to make lots and lots of concrete. And they could use the concrete in between their bricks to give their buildings and their other structures just an incredible amount of rigidity and strength. And because of that, like I just said a few minutes ago, many of these structures still exist today. One of the most famous structures that they ever built was the Colosseum. And it was built in about 80 AD. And it was a huge arena that could seat about 60,000 people. And another famous building was the Pantheon, which is similar to the Parthenon, which we've seen and talked about. And that was a temple built to honor Rome's gods. The Parthenon's roof was the largest dome of its time. Let's take a look at the Colosseum. Now, the Colosseum was built not for a variety of sporting events, but for gladiator combat. And a gladiator was usually a Roman slave that had to fight. And it wouldn't be just we're going to fight like a boxing match or we're going to fight like an MMA match. It's a fight to the death almost always. And 60,000 people would crowd into this Coliseum. Think about it, like an ancient football stadium. or an ancient basketball stadium. 60,000 people could fit in this, so it's just humongous. A lot of modern stadiums are larger, but this is from the ancient world. This is from 80 AD. Um, and a lot of it's still standing. You can see it's not all still standing, but quite a bit of it. And that's still standing because of the arch construction and the concrete that they used. But gladiators would fight to the death within the Colosseum. They also had chariot races, but Colosseum mostly used for gladiatorial combat. Let's take a look at our questions for this week. Now, this is an ORQ. It's a Part A, Part B. Part A says list two famous Roman structures that are still standing today. I mentioned two in the text and two in this video, so that needs to be one and two. And then you need to give me some details about why these structures are still standing. We need three details from the text. So Part B should be a paragraph answer using at least three details from the text. You should have a introduction sentence, you should have three detailed sentences, and you should have a conclusion sentence for full credit. As always, you can call, text, email me, send me a message off of Google Classroom if you need any help. I will respond as soon as possible. Take your time. You'll have no trouble doing this. It will probably not take you very long. Just do your best. See you soon.